Good day and welcome to today's Conversation podcast. Today we are privileged to host the General Secretary of the Council of Churches in Zambia, Father Emmanuel Chikoya. You must have heard him several times commenting about civic, public, and other issues. So in today's conversation, we delve into the life of Father Chikoya, and through him we review the state of our country, what could be done better, what have we done right, and what are our hopes. Father Chikoya, welcome to today's Conversation podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here, looking forward to the conversation, and we will do what we can to contribute basically to the good of this country. Yes.
Before we delve into your life, there's been a remarkable development. You were just launching the Oasis Forum. I think the Oasis Forum, for our young people, they may not know the great works it did, but I think during the period of the year 2000 and 2001, it was an instrumental civic force to promote good governance. It comprised you, CCZ, the ZEC at the time, Zambia Episcopal Conference, they've changed, Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia, and Law Association of Zambia, and other NGOs like NGOCC. Just tell us about this remarkable development and why you have relaunched the Oasis Forum.
I think the relaunch of the Oasis Forum was long overdue. There's need, there's power in numbers. There's power in working together. And so we noted, reflected on the the great work that was done in fighting the third term that time, and there is clearly a need to ensure that we have a lasting and people-driven constitution. And so in that space, the church, the women's sector through NGOCC, LAS, the legal part of it, and the other two church mother bodies are critical stakeholders. Yes, we are able to speak in our own right, but we do well when we do it together. Hence the launch today. And what are we going to be concerned about? It's the rule of law, ensuring that the process prior, during, and after the enactment of the Constitution review is driven by stakeholders without leaving anyone behind. And so we want to bring that voice that is critical on board. And what better avenue than relaunching the Oasis Forum? So I think we are saying to the people of Zambia, we are back and we are here to work with you. We are here to promote good governance, and we need a clear roadmap. That was contained in the launch speech today. And so we're looking forward to, of course, tough times, but also a very fulfilling assignment, because at the end of the day, would like to have a people-driven, adopted, and owned constitution. Yeah.
So primarily what has brought together, first of all, are these proposals to amend the constitution?
Yes. We don't want to have any cherry picking. We want to have there must be a clear roadmap, and everything that, given all what we've gone through in the past, the vast sums of money or invested in these processes, we need to do it right this time. We can't afford again to have a process that is defective. Remember the issue of the Bill of Rights. All those have to be done, and so we have a huge task ahead of us, and we feel we can contribute among other stakeholders to ensuring this is done, and done very well. Yeah.
Wonderful. I think we'll discuss later in the conversation the details and state of our country, and probably what has necessitated you key stakeholders to come and speak in a unified voice. Who is Father Emmanuel Chikoya? People just hear you speak very strongly on these national issues. Governments may perceive you differently, the opposition may perceive you differently. Many people may not understand. Just walk us through, who is Father Emmanuel Chikoya?
I usually say he's a boy from Kanyama. So, growing up in these compounds exposes you to the West of the West, and of course, even the best of the best. And so you grow up in these backgrounds where, life is quite challenging. And so something in you begins to build up. You know, looking back, that time maybe it was just casual things, but there's something in you that wants to speak for others, something in you that wants to come out and, you know, stand for certain agendas. You want to coordinate people, you want to mobilize people. And so eventually, as I grew up, I found myself, you know, getting involved, very shy, actually, initially very, very shy character. I wouldn't think I would be, you know, be behind the microphone, or I would be behind, you know, the helm of an institution like the Council of Churches in Zambia. That was the tall order, you know, when Reverend Japheth Ndlovu, that time, I usually joke that he poached me from the Anglican Church. I was at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross, serving as a deacon, you know, very young, still underdeveloped. And so he pushed me into the pool, ecumenical pool, I would call it. And the rest is history. So I am, you know, a firstborn in a family of 9, 7 boys and 2 girls. And the development into leadership began through Sunday school.
You're saying you are a boy from Kanyama, so you grew up in Lusaka?
Yes, from grade 5 to date, I've been a Lusaka person. But prior to that, I was in Kafue, Kaseva. Again, you know, these are areas like Zambia compound, mud, you know, houses that have been built of mud bricks. And so you grow up in those harsh environments. And I was heading in the wrong direction, actually. I had to be picked from the deputy headmaster's office, almost getting expelled. My father just said, you are changing to Lusaka, and that was a turnaround. I think parents should never give up on their children. And then, you know, I was able to find my feet academically, developed, you know, exposure in church life. I'm an Anglican. So that also became a platform. You're into youth leadership, and, you know, my father died when I was in grade 11. That also then pushed me into, you know, as they'll tell you a man is not too young. So you have to take on leadership in the family. And so eventually did a bit of stint at the Zambia National Commercial Bank. I worked for 8 years. I worked briefly at the airport for 10 months. And then the call got stronger, and I had to resign. I didn't retire.
Did you know that you become a priest?
In the early stages, no. If you ask my father, that was not one of the top priorities. Of course, you know, you get stipends as a clergy. So people would want their children to learn, get better jobs, so they say. But so I did get a better job, so it looked, and then I had to resign. And somebody remarked that I had gone nuts. How do you leave a banking job with prospects of promotion? I was a supervisor, accounting and finance department at Zanako, that main building in town. They tried to do early retirement, they refused. And so I just had to go with nothing, actually.
Wow, because you resigned.
And then a quarter of you're given an allowance, which is a quarter of what you used to get as a salary, and I'd already married.
So you resigned from the bank?
Yes, I did.
To go now to pursue theological studies?
Yes, at Ndolo, St. John's Anglican Seminary. But I'd already been married. I was an early, I would say those that got into marriage quite early. At 22, I was already married, 1991. And we had, by the time we were getting into seminary in 1998, after 8 years of banking, I was basically a father of 3 boys. And so that was quite a challenge, but we managed to navigate through. And then I was fascinated with liberation theology, you know. The Jesuits were quite, you know, an area of interest for me, though I'm an Anglican. The likes of Archbishop Oscar Romero, the Archbishop Medando Mazombo, those were quite, had a huge impact on me. Of course, I was modeled or mentored at the Cathedral of the Holy Cross by the late Bishop David Njovu. These shaped us and helped us. I remember being interviewed by the National Mirror then. And if you get back to it, I said, I'm I'm coming on board. I want to be an agent of change in the community. I said those things, and I'm asking myself, maybe I didn't know what I was saying.
Yeah, because the National Mirror was a publication by CCZ.
Yes, and ZEC.
Oh, and ZEC, yes.
It was
a joint
yeah, it was the Post of that time. Until, of course, the Post came in. And so basically, 4 boys. One is working for a bureau. The firstborn, secondborn is studying medicine, 60th year. Thirdborn was admitted on 1st March to the bar.
Oh, congratulations.
First attempt is gone through. Then we have a girl doing early childhood education, degree at Charimbana University, and then there's a gap with a grade 10, who is the last one. So basically, that's...
that has been... Where have you served after you finished training and you became a priest? You ordained as a priest. Where else have you served?
Yeah, during the course of our training, you are attached to parishes. So we did get stints in Ndola, Luansha, Mufrira, those areas for practicals. But then you are also sent back to your sending diocese. I was from the Anglican Diocese of Lusaka, so I had the privilege of serving at the cathedral. The Cathedral of the Holy Cross is, again, if you told me that one day I would stand, not sit in the pews, but be on that pulpit and speak to this mixture of international, local, high and low profile people, I would have laughed at you and say you are joking. And so to get into that space and to preach, you are looking at the likes of the late Dennis Riwewe, and they'll be listening and critiquing. It wasn't okay there. This etc. But they built us, and they gave us positive criticism, and we became well shaped. And so my first stint was the Cathedral of the Holy Cross. I did my final year practicals there, and then I was posted as a deacon. You begin as a deacon, you are made a deacon, and then you are ordained as a priest after a year or so, subject to good performance, and then you do your curious again. So about 3 years, that is when you can get to be on your own. But before I could finalize the 3 years, that is where the story of Reverend Japhet Ndlovu comes in, where I was poached and
Reverend Japhet Ndlovu is a colorful figure in the Anglican Church and in CCZ, because I think he held similar positions that you are holding, and he was a very instrumental voice, I think, in the Oasis Forum and in the fight against corruption. He was a leading voice, I think, in the 90s and 2000s. So he must have been your mentor.
Yes, ecumenically, he played a huge role. I mean, I loved his charisma. He is from the Reformed Church in Zambia. But he was at the helm of the CCZ as General Secretary and had the opportunity to serve as chaplain. The CCZ and the Catholics own the Unza Chapel.
Again, it's a joint project.
Yes, we built it together, and we have Protestant and Catholic. If you go there, you will notice there's a Protestant chapel, Catholic chapel, and then offices for the chaplains. So I served, from 2003 to 2006 as chaplain. And so it was a privilege to serve under him. I was delegated to go and represent his office. Little did I know that I was actually in the process of being exposed, being groomed, and I never ever dreamt that I would be a general secretary. I was comfortable to do my chaplaincy and be there, more or less like the behind-the-scenes person, ecumenically, theologically, that would feed into the office of such a great figure. He indeed has had a very influential impact on me. When he would stand to speak, the way he would come out, his posture, even appearance, you wouldn't want to be showed around him.
Your experience at the University of Zambia, you were a chapel there for some times, dealing with youth issues, student issues. Probably they are the biggest congregants at the chapel there. Did that also expose you to activism? Because students have various issues and they're interacting also with national issues. Yeah,
as a chaplain, you become a refuge center. When there's a crisis on campus,
It
the
is
student
your crisis.
come to you. They'll come and put their fragile, property or things. They'll be all over. They'll be confused. I remember vividly a story of one student that actually had fell from the third or so floor because it was tear gassed that time.
Yeah.
And this is a lady. And then you feel your heart boils. You say, what kind of police officers are these that would tear gas a hostel for ladies? They are inside, they are contained inside. You still tear gas them, and then she had no option. She can't face the police and maybe lost consciousness. The next thing, she fell down, lost 1 year in hospital, in ICU, and she's still alive today. When I heard her story, I tried to, in my limited sense, I was trying to see how I would, bring justice to her, because they didn't compensate her, and she lost all that time. And so something within me was saying, no, this is not the way we're supposed to, handle issues and handle differences and manage challenges around students. And so I had that exposure, and we did what we could, but at times we tried to knock and, escalate these matters through the Office of the General Secretary. It was ongoing work by the time I was recalled. I just did 3 years and I was recalled to serve in Chawama Parish.
Your home.
Yes, similar to
Kanyama, Chawama.
Yes, basically, yeah, similar circumstances. And again, there it was awesome to work. When you live in the community like that one, you're not a visitor. You live with them, you mourn with them, you celebrate with them. You are walking in the flooded areas with them. You see the challenges. I remember writing an article for the International Anglican Family Network on issues of the family and how people in such areas get affected, how they get by. It was featured twice. I contributed, and so ministry in Chawama was quite. I think it was a build-up. You are being exposed. You want to speak. Actually, I remember leading a delegation of protesting, community members, because at that time there was a power failure. I think some substation or something was blown off, and they were taking forever, and people were losing. And so we went in busloads to, the headquarters, and we were ushered into their hall.
You led the a delegation from the community to protest at ZESCO.
Yes, and of course we were managed quite well, and I was the representative of the people. I spoke for them. That was my first exposure, I think, even with media. Maybe, apart from the deacon, a serious conversation with the media should have been my first one. The other one, the national media, was still very naive. And that very night, that power issue was sorted out. And so I then realized we are there not just to bury people, marry them, baptize them, and tell them go in peace to love and serve the Lord when there are challenges in their homes and in their communities.
You recognize that you can actually resolve social issues.
Yes. The religious leaders, we have power, but we are behaving, it's like a lion behaving like a cat. We have power, we have influence, we have convening power, and of course we must use it properly and for the right causes. And so when you see, usually if those people are left to themselves, there could have been chaos. For example, they are going to be marching, stoning, and whatever. But because of our leadership, we're able to say, no, let's get on buses, we go and carry whatever is rotten, let's carry it to their headquarters. We're given audience, and we're able to resolve a matter. They came at midnight, and then they left. They said, no, we didn't want to come during the day because we were scared that you were going to stone us. That showed that we can and we must speak for and with the most vulnerable in our societies. Yes.
I'm glad that the Oasis Forum has been launched, because many times the church is accused of being silent. And again, when you speak, you're accused of being political. And I think, like you are saying, you have to carry your voice and the authority that you carry, the influence, with a lot of responsibility. You have to balance those two extremes. But I think the issue should be the people, nothing else. The people, and what would Jesus do in these circumstances?
There is a story of, I think it must be a Catholic priest. He said, when I help the poor, you applaud me. You applaud me. You know, you applaud me. You are very happy. But when I ask, why are the poor poor? You classify me as a communist, you know, because you don't want that question to be asked. The role of the church, if you go through Luke 4:18-20, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, you know, to preach good news to the poor, to open the eyes of the blind, you know, to help the crippled to walk, and the imprisoned must be set free. What is this good news? People think the good news is us saying, oh, Jesus died for you and all those things. Yes, get saved. But what does it really mean? What does it really mean? What does it translate into? It means we need to actualize John 10:10. Jesus said, I've come that they may have life and have it in its abundance. Not no. We must have a heavenly experience here. And
life in abundance, as the Bible puts it.
We are not saying everyone will be a billionaire, everyone will be a trillionaire. No, but people must be able to lead dignified lives. And because of that, we then find ourselves beginning to walk with the poor, speak for them, with them, and they have a voice. You know, if you look at the challenge of Bartimaeus was blind. People were comfortable to help him with coins and all those things. And just like in the current day and age, people and politicians, you excuse me, you are comfortable with problems and managing problems, not resolving problems. You know, so the role of the church is to amplify the voice so that the blind like Bartimaeus can shout, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. You know, meaning I need a solution. I need to take care of myself. I don't need to be guided around. We need to preach a message that is empowering so that people will not depend on Wamwine or whoever they call those titles, but they'll be able to lead dignified lives. They can come to the table knowing that they are fully made and empowered by God, which will be at a contradiction with those that want to have problems. Because when problems are there, politicians and those that want to take advantage are happy. Because they'll be saying, I'm here to solve your problems. You know, I'm here to do this. And what is actually being done or administered are painkillers. We need antibiotics. We need medication. That resolves the problem and not to manage the problem. And so the church and other religious actors are better positioned to help inform. So the church must be a place not to just prepare people for death, to prepare people, for life hereafter. It must prepare people for life now. We must equip the saints. Zambia is 80-90% Christian. And so what are we doing with these people? You know, so if there's laziness, if there's corruption, it is a bad reflection on us as a church. It is a bad reflection. We should be able to ask ourselves, what are we saying to these people? Who are these violent people? Who are these people that are promoting tribalism, regionalism? Where do they come from? And who are they in church and outside church? And so the church has a role to deal holistically with the audience that we have. And one thing that scares me is that what is written in that story of the talents.
Yeah.
I gave you 2, I gave you 5, I gave you 1. If we are behaving like the one who got 1, bury the talent, survive, and then you just say, oh, you gave me this, here I am, I wasn't violent, I wasn't this, but I've arrived. God does not want us just to go and make it in heaven. He wants us to, discharge, to give out our potential in such a way that at the end of the day, even when they are burying us, we'll be resting in peace and reigning in peace because we would have given out our very best. And so God will ask each church leader, I gave you 200 people, I gave you 500, I gave you 1,000. What did you do with them? Apart from demanding for tithe and offering. Sometimes
there is criticism with the church and its message where our your church, as a church, as church leaders, promote a pacifist message, like you say, where we appear to celebrate the poor, and that the poor are blessed in their condition. Mm-hmm. I had a friend of mine, who's an Adventist, who said, I didn't go to university because maybe the message to me was so literal. I thought Jesus would come by tomorrow. I really felt like my ambition were very dampened. I really wanted Christ to come. Another friend of mine says, most of church leaders allow the poor to be comfortable in their poverty. What would be your answer to that?
Yeah, thank you. I love the fact that you've talked about the poor and the Bible talks about the poor. But one thing that people try to neglect in that scripture, Jesus said the poor you have among you. He did not say you must have. The king's language needs to be noted. He said the poor are going to be around. But he did not say the poor you must have and they must remain there forever. He's saying the reality of challenges is there. But I've done something. I've called you. If you go to Matthew 25, he is talking about it won't be blessed, well done, you who prayed 10 times per day, you who had the biggest cathedral. No. It will be, you visited me when I was sick. You empowered me, if I can add, and I'm able to live a sustainable life. You responded to this challenge. You accompanied me when I had justice issues. Those are the things that will matter, to identify, to walk with those that are marginalized, those that are weak, those that are rejected, are oppressed, tormented, tortured. Those are the people we are supposed to go with. Jesus had a preferential option for the poor, women. In the Jewish and Hebrew culture, if you categorize people, women were even lower than domestic animals in that context. Jesus came back to realign the thinking of the people that a woman was crucial, was important. If you look at his response, he never complied or followed or went with the crowd. When they came, bringing just a woman caught in adultery, he was in a sense telling them, who did she commit adultery with? Yeah. And where is that culprit? And so he brings a different narrative, a narrative of reaching out. Segregated communities, a Samaritan woman. We are from East, we are from South, we are from this, we cannot marry you, we cannot do this. All that kind of approach was against the flow of the Christian faith. So Jesus did not come to preach a passive gospel. He did not come to preach an apologetic message. And that is why, if you notice, when he dies on Good Friday, the disciples are hidden. They are hidden because there's no, they've lost track. He resurrects, and after, at the day of Pentecost, they are out of their, upper room, in hiding. The Bible clearly says they were in hiding. Yeah. But once they encountered Jesus, they were in the street. They were not scared of the temple authorities. They were not scared of emperors, and some of them died gruesome deaths because they were unstoppable. And people began to call them Christians, those who look like Christ, who speak like Christ. And Christ is a just king. Christ is not a passive king. He confronted the challenges, for example, in the temple, where they were selling. There was temple currency. Today we can use the same kwacha to buy at the market and also take to church. In those days there was a different currency for the church, and the money changers took advantage. They made a killing. You come to church, you want to do an offering, you have to buy that currency. You have to buy those goats, the sheep, and the pigeons. Mm-hmm. And they took advantage and made a killing out of it. So Jesus told them, you have turned my father's house into a den of robbers. Mm-hmm. And so he turned things upside down. And so Jesus is not a pacifist. Jesus is radical, transformational. He called actually Herod, tell that fox, I don't know if you survive today. Your registrar of societies will be on your church. Everybody will be all over the place. And he called the Pharisees, you whitewashed tombs, And so he called a spade a spade.
Yeah, because whitewashed tombs are nice and white from the outside,
Yes, but full
but
of
have
bones.
decay and bones inside.
Yes, so so when you look at if you really you've been converted, you've been washed in the blood of Jesus, and you see evil happening and you are passive, you see injustices going on, you are passive, you see people grabbing property from orphaned children, you are passive, you see GBV going on, you are passive, you are not a Christian, you are something else. Yeah. You are a churchian, maybe.
In fact, then maybe that's why sometimes they misunderstand people like you, because you have to speak justice. You have to speak for the people. You have to expose evil wherever it is. Your walk to CCZ as Secretary General, General Secretary, sorry. Yeah. Please speak to that before we begin to review our country and the president.
I would take it like it reminds me of the story of David and the brothers. You know, when Samuel came to anoint David as king, yeah. They tall and handsome. I'm fairly handsome, I guess. But you
Jonathan
find there are others who may appear to be more. So they appear to be more qualified, more whatever, and all those things. And so actually, when they did the first advert, I never applied. I didn't even know that it had been done. When I was chaplain and living back to go into Chawama, I was told by others, how do you move from Handsworth into a compound? But, I'd grown, and yes, I'd served at the cathedral. It's a great honor and privilege, but I'm a soldier. When I went back, I told my bishop, I'm a soldier under command. You assign me wherever I want to send me. And so we went to serve in Chawama, and we did what we could. Then I was sent to Livingstone. Again, did 5 years, and then I was brought back to the cathedral. 2016. It's very rare that you'd go back to such a high-profile church. So and then they re-advertise. Again, for whatever reason, I didn't see that advert. And so somebody called me on 24th May 2017. The following day was a public holiday, and the deadline was on 26th. It was a Friday. I didn't know the knockoff half day at CCZ.
Yes.
And so I spent the whole night at the grade 12. Our CVs, when they are too basic. So I had to spend the whole night. It's important to have people that you consult, people that can critique you, people that will, look through and, panel a bit your CV and things like that, because there are certain things they may see that you don't know, and you may still be still using the grade 12 kind of language and all those things which are not suitable for these high-profile jobs. So I basically submitted at the last minute, and I was just squeezing it through the door. Reverend Matare was in the office. I think the rest had knocked off, maybe locked the door for security reasons. I said, who is that one pushing something? I said, oh, it's me, just submitting an application. So almost like the last to submit the application, the last to be interviewed, and the panel, when you go to an interview, you're supposed to be introduced and all those things, that preliminary. I remember one I will not mention, but I've told her, and we laugh about it.
Yeah.
She hammered, was through about 7 questions, one after the other, at me. And it unsettles you.
Yeah.
And so when I got out of that interview, I met them the following day, because there was an interview, farewell for my predecessor, Reverend Matale. I said, thank you for the opportunity to attend the interview. I think it was a learning curve for me. I don't think I got it. And then people begin to say, what are you talking about?
You were the best candidate.
So at the end of the day, and when you look at the profile of the people that applied, they are saved at national level in their churches, synod level, board level, even of CCZ and things like that. So you are just a midget, in short. And so when we got it, delayed a bit, got it. It was a huge, huge surprise to me. And I remember sitting on the first day when I reported on the edge of that big chair, and then Reverend Matari told me, no, sit comfortably. you are likely to fall.
It looked like the feet were, I mean, the shoes were too big for your feet.
And then you're asking yourself, what have I done to myself? Where have I brought myself? You know, expectations are huge. And
what's the role of the
General Secretary?
General Secretary?
General Secretary of the Council of Churches is, you know, the vision bearer, the person given the mandate to manage the Secretariat of the Council of Churches in Zambia. I'm the chief spokesperson. I have to attend to queries, media, visibility of CCZ, resource mobilization, custodian of, you know, properties of the council. You know, the council
speak to the members. Sometimes, you know,
Yes.
ordinary people may not understand
Yes.
what forms and constitutes the Council of Churches in Zambia.
Actually, it was founded in 1914, so it's an institution that has been there. Could be order among the church mother bodies, actually, because it began as the Northern Rhodesia Christian Council, working around the issues of social issues, education, health, because the missionaries had zones. There was a Catholic zone, there was an Anglican zone in terms of the way the country was handled. But then they also realized there were still certain things they needed to do together. And so there was need to do promote Christian unity, but also ensure that there's an enlightened Christian presence in the country. You know, not just to be there, but to have a church that is well informed. So as Secretariat, we network, we capacitate, we provide trainings, funds permitting, scholarships are given to, so that young clergy are trained, exposed. We are there to promote good governance, you know, advocate for accountable governance, and issues of GBV, and any related matters around there.
And
also,
your members?
Members will be 24 mainline churches, the Protestants mainly, so the likes of the Anglican Church, UCZ, Reformed Church, you know, the Orthodox Church, Coptic Orthodox Church, the Salvation Army, United Methodist, African Episcopal Methodist.
There are 24 in total, 24 congregations.
So those, not congregations, denominations.
Oh, denominations, sorry.
Each of these denominations has congregations.
Yes.
And so countrywide, we are present.
Okay.
We are present where even you may not find a formal government building or things like that. And so in terms of presence, in terms of reach, we are countrywide. And we operate through what we call local chapters. So in Lusaka, because it's a big district, there are zonal kind of chapters, Kanyama, Matero. Clergy will be together, the youth will be in there. And then we replicate, for example, if we have a social and economic justice department, we'll also replicate it in the districts. At
local level.
And especially where there are activities that we are doing. We have gender committees. We have the famous Umos where the women have come together, and they've shown actually, you know, modeled to us religious leaders or church leaders that unity is very important, because they've even drawn people who are non-CCZ into the Umos structures. You know, they pray together, but they also help each other. The village bank models and all these other things, they help each other. And so we have that concept. We have youth also. We provide chaplaincy through University of Zambia and the Ridgeway campus. But we also own 2 colleges of education. Many people don't know.
Which are?
The David Livingstone College of Education in Livingstone. These
that
are
belongs to
high-performing. Yes, it's owned by Council of Churches. Of course, grant-aided.
Yes, by government.
So we and Marco Moffat College of Education with a huge farm there. And those are some of the best, among the best colleges in terms of teacher training in the country. And, but we do so at a very minimal fee. Currently, with a slash that happened, I think the fees were about 2,000 per term. Where would you get college education at 2,000 kwacha?
Quality, you know, college education.
Yeah. And good infrastructure, values are taught. And so we have that. And we talk of Mindolo Ecumenical Foundation, we are also part of that agenda, because that is a Pan-African institute where some of the early founding fathers of African leaders, liberation struggle leaders, actually were being taught public speaking skills. In the Mindolo, there's an external theater, you know, some kind of podium that they used to, with the famous Africa Literature Center, was at Mindolo. That is the input of the church, the peace training. It's a huge campus, the Karurush training farms, all those products of the church. We are part of that as a national council. We belong to the All Africa Conference of Churches and World Council of Churches. And that through that avenue, Mindolo was built to be a place where religious leaders and political leaders were trained in Africa. You know.
And journalists, by the way, some of the best journalists have come from Mindolo, Africa Literature Center.
It's unfortunate that it went under. Hopefully it will be revived. I believe that the value of dry bones can live again. So in terms of infrastructure, in terms of presence, we could account for a considerable portion of the Zambian Christian population. UCZ alone may be around 3 million.
Members, yes.
So we account for quite a considerable number of Christians in Zambia. And so we've traditionally been Protestant churches, but we have 1 or 2 Pentecostal churches that are members.
We have a tradition here where we review the state of our country through the leaders that have led us. In your view, and I'm glad that for some time now you've dealt with governance issues, civic issues, political issues, and you're best placed to offer your opinions on, I think, our country and how we can do better, where our mistakes were, and how we can improve on them. Let's start with Dr. Kenneth David Kaunda. Your reflections.
I think for me, Dr. Kaunda, beginning with the mistake he made was to overstay, but he had it right. This is a person with, no degree, no tertiary level, these high accolades in terms of academics, and yet you could clearly see that he had the best interest for this country. He laid a very solid foundation. If you look at the infrastructure that we have today, you look at the new ones, you will see the old ones standing. So there was the blessing of the One Zambia, One Nation slogan that had to be used to bring us together. That stands out for Dr. Kaunda. National unity. He really did very well. He made sure if you are from Southern Province, you are serving in Northern Province. Northern, you were all over the place. He didn't want those issues of regionalism, tribalism to be entrenched. And so he did well. In terms of building and trying to promote a Zambia that was sustainable, I think we had industries, we had companies those days, the Memakos, Lenco, Lintco, all these, Northwestern and maybe Western Province, the pineapples and all those, we had the industry in place. We were able even to, at one stage when we had those sanctions, we were able to make our own drinks, which unfortunately we ended up, we sold that in our rights.
Tip-top.
So quench, we should.
And quench.
And that was a nice drink. And so in terms of the infrastructure, when it comes to the military and even production of weapons, again, we had the best of the best, So the mines, of course, were there, and sport was promoted, and, he laid a good foundation, in short. He was a no-nonsense character, and all we knew those days, young as we were, Kaunda was equivalent to the term president. We would be saying, who is the Kaunda of Malawi? Who is the Kaunda of Zimbabwe? Because we thought the president's meant
the name of Kaunda was synonymous, with president.
So I think he did lay a good foundation. Okay. And but the challenge was, and the investment in developing the young generation, ensuring Zambia had enough expertise, but he stayed on and edged with them. He should have been able to step aside, allow them to take up, and then he is able to give that fatherly figure as a statesman.
Zambia's second president, he came with the euphoria of democracy, like Dr. Kaunda came with the euphoria of national independence.
Yes.
Dr. Frederick Chiluba came with the euphoria of democracy. What are your reflections? What did he do right? What could he have done better?
I think he mesmerized you with his eloquence. That stands out. That you can't, remove from him. And, when he was interacting with the national media, international, local, you knew you were okay.
Yeah.
You'll be comfortable with that. So, but that aside, I think he opening up the economy was good. One thing, if you noted, under the counter regime, of course, we had parastatals and all those things. UBZ could take 2 days to reach Lusaka to Chipata. And, you look at the timing and all those things. But he brought in opening up the economy, and then we had competition in the transport sector, and then efficiency came in. We are able to go in whatever furthest part of the country. You can still reach it almost in 1 day. I think that was good, but again, I think maybe the liberalization of our economy could have been overdone. We should have been very cautious that certain strategic things could have been kept, or we should have not allowed those parastatals to die. I don't think it was a natural death. It was a man-made death. For example, Zambia Airways was profitable. Yeah. Even up to the point it was being liquidated, it was viable. Because you read through, you hear of assets internationally that were there. We could have done better on that score. And who knows, we could have been competing with, if I may dare say, with Ethiopian Airways.
Ethiopian Airlines, which is one of the best airlines in the world and the best in Africa. Actually, we used to train their technical and other stuff here in Zambia. That's how strong Zambian Airways and our civil aviation industry was.
So I think the mistake there was too many complimentary tickets and all those things. We should have been very firm, very strict with that. And so those are some of the examples. But in terms of fighting, speaking, I think Chulu will be remembered, of course, as a trade unionist that spoke for the workers, that you can't take away from him, and opening up the Zambian economy. Again, we say thumbs up to him as we remember and reflect on his leadership. But it doesn't, when you get into office, it doesn't mean everything that your colleague did is wrong. I think, exposing of the security tunnels at State House was a big blunder, and he could have done better. But at the end of the day, we are only human. We do what we can and then leave the stage and move on. I think also he should be respected for realizing when the third term bid was going on. Of course, he will pretend, no, it's not me, it's the people. Being able to say, I respect the will of the people, I think is commendable. Because if you don't, you can easily turn a country upside down. Of course, he gave Christianity prominence, but reflecting, of course, it's important to consult as widely as possible, but he did his best and left the stage. I think we commend him for that. It's possible to cling to power and then turn everything upside down.
Levi Patrick Manawasa was Chiluba's vice president, went into retirement, and then we saw him emerge as a candidate for the MMD, and he became the third president of our country.
It's like the rejected stone becomes the chief cornerstone, I think he came on board. He had good intentions in terms of fighting corruption, very sober, stable leadership. People thought he would be under the influence of his, because he was basically handpicked. And but he came out and, like he said, all those disparaging remarks and descriptions of him, he proved to be better because the economy was actually turning around. Is it the time when we had the HIPIC completion point?
Yes, it was under President.
It was under his leadership.
Manawasa,
under his leadership. And so he'll be remembered for that. The debt was written off. And here we are with a huge debt today, and so he was a person that wanted order. He didn't want. I remember in some institution somebody was getting double salaries. He just told them, "You can't do this," and he put his foot down. And so you need decisive leadership. You need firm leadership. So Manawasa will be remembered for his clear crusade against corruption and, prudence, what do I call this? Being careful in terms of expenditure.
Good term,
good
prudence.
stewardship. Stewardship of resources and being prudent with the usage of resources. And overall. And he also spoke to regional issues. They are not good friends with some of our neighbors, Zimbabwe, because he just said, no, you can't treat people like that. And so Kaunda also will be remembered, he said Zambia will never be free if the entire region is not free. The
liberation struggle.
Liberation struggle and all those things. I think Chiluba should be remembered also. There was a bit of intervention in the Congo and all those things. So Zambia has contributed.
And Angola, yes.
Contributed to not just national inward looking. We had leaders that were able to look beyond the borders and do what they can to bring peace, to facilitate negotiations and reconciliation. And so that is something notable.
President Rupia Bwezanbanda, he was vice president to Levi Mwanawasa. Levi Mwanawasa suddenly dies just after starting his term, and he took over as president.
Yeah, I think for him generally, I would say, of course, he was more or less the least expected to be president, but he became president, and I think generally the economy seemed to have been stable during his time. But I think he's a person that had, I would say, was more friendly and could be accommodating. You hear stories of him stopping even the motorcade to greet somebody. And so a down-to-earth person, a person that wanted to relate and wanted nothing but the best for every person, And, that somehow helped to manage the transition. It matters who you bring in, especially when you lose a sitting president. So he managed the transition, and we were able to have the next elections very well. Did we do any reviews under him? Constitutionally?
Yes, we had the constitutional review that actually failed on the floor of the House. UPND didn't. UPND and PF, some PF members supported it, but it failed on the floor of the House in 2010.
So he did his best, and I mean, even regionally also, before he became president, he helped with the Namibian issue, whether he was chair or whatever it is, in terms of the affairs of the country. And so those would be some of the notable things. He was a good diplomat, and that is the little I can say.
Michael Sata, a fierce character who fights in the opposition for a period of 10 years, emerges as winner against Rupia Banda.
Yeah, I'm tempted to say he almost was like a Magufuli type of person, because he wanted things to be done. He would quickly go, even as governor, he was known for those abrupt visits, impromptu, checkups. You need sometimes to keep people on their toes. And he's, of course, like you've ably stated, he's not the kind of, humble, quiet person. He's pushy, and he wants things done. He didn't want mediocrity. And, and one is left to speculate what could have happened if he had stayed on and completed his term. Maybe we could be talking of a different story. He identified with the people. When there were challenges, he would, be there as people are having difficulties with fuel and other, community challenges. And so he was a people person, and very determined, very forceful, and he seemed to know what he needed to get done. But of course, he was also unpredictable. Of course, the King Cobra, positively, because people would jump to conclusions, it's lethal. And so if he wants something done, he was determined, and he would want to be precise, in a sense.
He dies within 3 years in office. He's like Rupia Banda. He served only 3 years, but he died within 3 years in office, and President Edgar Lungu takes over.
Yes, was President Lungu, of course, again, that was against the tide. Least expected to be president, and the president then who died leaves him with the instruments of power, and he saw what others did not see, and then he comes to the podium. I think he, in the interactions that I had, and together with the other church leaders during the national dialogue and all those things, we could see a good person in him. But sometimes trying to please too many people, sometimes you have people around you that can influence you sometimes into certain decisions. But I think he meant well. When you talk to him, he meant well. But the thing that I think he could have mismanaged, he needed to be a bit more firm.
Yeah.
To be a bit more firm and, expect certain standards from his rank and file. But during his leadership also, we saw roads being made. We should be able to, of course, a number of them good roads, some of them are not infrastructure, not up to the standard. Those could be the flip side of it. But we saw a contribution in terms of schools, in terms of hospitals being built during his leadership. And, but I think the worst could have been the issues of violence, the cadres,
yes.
And I think they became too free. And actually they were even challenging those that had been to school, what is the benefit of your degree and whatever. And I think he could have managed that one better. But when you engage, you talk to him, I remember the senior, we called them our principals, they'll be saying, wow, we feel so inspired. But then you hear other juniors saying something else. He needed to, bring them in and to call them to order.
Yeah.
He was available to talk. Yes, we, of course, he's a busy, Office of President is busy, but he was willing to let go of all the protocols, and you are able to meet him in a room like this with no security person, and with the current president conversating and speaking to each other as brother to brother, which is very commendable. And I think he did his part, but could have been more firm, more, come out and bring certain critical players in his team to order. But infrastructure-wise, he did his part, and of course there were processes to restructure the debt that were still work in progress. They couldn't turn out, be completed during their time. So he'll be remembered, I think, for those, that infrastructure,
yes.
And many others. That others
President Hakainde Hichilema also comes on the euphoria of change. He's a leader from the opposition. Has been, like President Michael Sata was in opposition for some time, wins elections, but I guess too much at stake with a lot of people hopping on him. What are your reflections on President Hakainde Hichilema?
Don't overpromise. That would be my initial comment. I think basically, I think the Zambians came out en masse to vote because they got a message. Here is a man, here is a political party that will change the narrative. Maybe people will be saying it's premature, but so far we've had 3 years, and the context of a very challenging economic scenario and climate issues, cholera issues, but all these clearly without fabricating stories. We are told they are going to be history. We are told these things will be resolved. They are a product of bad and visionless leadership. And so he comes to the podium, creating that, huge expectation in the Zambians. And then we have cholera. Then we have load shedding. And the question is, people will begin to say, are we dealing with the same? Or are we dealing with another person? And so I think they've come, and his presidency has come with that excitement, with those promises that were given to the people of Zambia by him and not a third party. And the people of Zambia are expecting nothing but the best. And So there's quite a very challenging economic scenario, the high cost of living, the monthly pricing of fuel. All these have caused challenges to the people of Zambia. But at the same time, of course, we do take note of the debt restructuring. But debt restructuring is not debt cancellation, and so it's just managing how you are going to pay back, the period how you, that you take to pay. And so lingering on my mind is the question, are we going to leave bills for our children and their children? Or we'll make sure that once we get, in this context that we've gotten the relief, we will leave a Zambia that is stronger economically, stronger in terms of the industry, stronger in terms of how we use our natural resources. And, it has taken long, or it is taking long for the benefits to trickle down. So it may be a bit premature. They are telling us we wait for 5 years, but based on the 3 years so far, the outlook has been quite not very good for the people of Zambia. But of
in
course,
fact, Father, just to contribute on the debt restructuring, it's totally different from the one we're talking about under Manawasa, because there was literally total debt forgiveness.
Yes.
$7.5 billion was forgiven.
Yes.
Here, like you've rightly put it out, we are postponing its payment.
Yes.
There's a debt, but it will be paid by others. And you are right that we need to engage.
Yeah.
Are we leaving a debt to our children, or it should be an inheritance? If it's our inheritance, what do we do between now, because we've rescheduled the debt to 2032 up to 2050, will we be building a sinking fund that should then come and pay? Or are we leaving this debt for our children and accumulate more debt, and our children will find the old debt we rescheduled and the new debt we've accumulated? I agree with you there that instead of being steeped in celebrations, in fact, it requires for more thorough thought and questions.
Yes. So I think you are very correct. I'm not too excited. I don't want to downplay it.
Yeah.
Yes, if I owe you money, you tell me, no, don't worry, pay me in June. I'll be relieved. But I'm not free, And so it calls for a sober approach. It calls for a cautious approach. And as we speak, we have no malice, no evil intention. But we are saying, please, let's be celebrating when we empower people in the agriculture sector, because we know once we empower them, they'll be sustainable in terms of income, but also food security. But ultimately, they contribute to the economy through taxes. One way or the other, they'll pay taxes. And let's increase and diversify our tax revenue base. We must make sure that we maximize, we get as much as we can. And so I shudder to think about our generations. If we are going to go into a business as usual mode, I mean, you've talked, very well about the debt cancellation. But here we are again. We have accumulated debt. And so those are the areas of concern from us. We must make sure that we have a Joseph kind of leadership that realize we will have 7 years of plenty, or whatever number of years of plenty. These mines have got a lifespan. What are we doing as we mine so that beyond the lifespan of these mines and other natural resources that we were extracting and exploiting, we will still be sustainable, and future generations will still be sustainable? We should not accumulate for ourselves. Remember the parable of the rich fool. He said, wow, I've done very well. I've got a harvest that is plenteous. I'll build bigger storage facilities, sit back, enjoy myself. And then God told him, you foolish man, today I demand your life. What will happen to all these things you have accumulated for yourself? And what benefit are they going to be? So we need to live in such a way. At this stage, we must make sure that we are accumulating wealth for future generations, not at individual level. Yes, individual level, have your own, but nationally, we need to be thinking of passing on a will that will make those people that will come later proud, and not agonize and wonder what kind of parents, what kind of forefathers and mothers, were there before them, that they, make them get born. Even before they are born, they are already in debt. And so that is an area of concern, very genuine concern. The high cost of living is an area of genuine concern. The stagnated process around the constitutional review is an area of concern, because we are given an impression it was like 2 years. We have a new and holistically, reviewed constitution. Nothing like contentious versus whatever non-contentious. Who determines that? Let's just have a holistic approach. We're expecting that to be done. Public Order Act should have been done. And so we are analyzing based on these issues. Yeah. We are told this was a bad law. Why has it become sweet? We are told we are going to have a constitutional review comprehensive enough. Why are we stagnating? And why, yes, we are told cadres are gone. Of course, there is some improvement, but they are not gone. We've seen the same behavior coming up. If we just switched from green to red, how can you have a state police officer being beaten by cadres? And those cadres, I hope they are arrested. If they are not, our police security system so incapable. Radio stations have been stormed, and including political leaders have been, the ruling party political leaders have been beaten, and the opposition have also equally complained. Rallies suddenly can't happen, and they are also wondering and are happy. I mean, we can't hoodwink each other like that. And so these are areas of concern. And let's also graduate from the blame game. When you go to the clinic, they will do a diagnosis. They will tell you you've got malaria. When you come the following day, they will not again continue blaming malaria. No, they will be checking, we gave you this medication. Are you getting healed or not? And if you are not, they change the course. They change the approach. No, this medicine seems to have reacted in your body. We are giving you a stronger, dosage, or a mild dosage because maybe it was too strong. And that is what we need to see. But if we continue in the diagnostic stage without getting to the prognosis, then we have areas of concern.
In fact, Father, that brings me to this question before we wind up, is that we are celebrating 60 years as a country, and we seem to have achieved less in comparison. We're far richer than Singapore, South Korea, even China, GDP per capita, in 1964. But here we are. Countries I've just cited, they've become first worlds.
Yes.
We are still poor, highly indebted. We are still burdened with diseases, poverty. What can we do better in the next 60 years?
I think the way we do our politics needs to change. The greatest problem, you change from the Kaunda era to the Chiruba era, you start purging the whole, cleansing the whole civil service. We must make sure that technocrats are employed because they are professionals, because they are competent, because these are the ones that run actually the country. Political leaders come and go. They are the institutional memory. They know what happened and they can pass on information. But if we are going to have high turnovers, every government changes, you have a high turnover in terms of change of staff. We lose certain expertise and we waste. These people are trained at huge cost to the country. And we've lost them along the way because we have been looking at the civil service from political lenses. And so that needs to change. We need to have an efficient, professional, and well-managed civil service. The offices, like offices of DCs, they should be competent people there. They shouldn't be retirement jobs for people that actually should be...
Or political rewards.
Yeah, political rewards. That should be resting somewhere in a farm and doing farming there. We need efficient, vibrant, young Zambians who are competent to be in charge there. And so it's not just about this government, it's about the past and even the others, So we need to get it right. These agreements that we sign, in the mining sector, in other sectors, corruption should be out of the picture. Selfish needs and desires and other things, interests, should be removed out of the picture. That is what, when you talk of Singapore, when you commit corruption in Singapore, you know that the law is there. It will bite you. In China, the extremes of even firing squad in some of these countries in dealing with corruption. Here, you even find the topmost leader even defending corrupt people. So how does corruption end? Because on one hand, you come to my home, my son has insulted you. I'm patting my son on the back. I'm basically telling the other children, do like he's doing. So we need to get it right. If we have zero tolerance, the issues of tribalism need to get out of the picture. Regionalism must get out of the picture. Development must not be taken to areas where we feel we've been voted for. No, Zambians have a right to choose whoever they want to choose. Once you are in charge of the country, take development to all parts of Zambia. Let's make sure Zambia becomes reachable infrastructure-wise. Yeah. How do you develop a country when your agricultural centers where you produce produce have dilapidated roads? They cannot even have banking services. They have to spend money to go and get their money. Communication is poor. We cannot. We are in a digital era where farmers can just get Google and they have information. An extension officer comes to supplement. So we need to get it right in terms of infrastructure and making every part of Zambia reachable in terms of communication, in terms of infrastructure. Because if these things are not in order, the cost of doing business is high. Yes. Because vehicle maintenance, for example, will be too high. No one will want to stay. You can employ so many civil servants. You take them to Shangombo to go and squat and crow as they get into their accommodation. I've been to Shangombo. I've been all over the country. So I'm not speaking from without. I've been to Vubwi. That route, you look at that road and you are wondering, are these people part of Zambia? Are they part of Zambia after 60 years? Yes, they are also part of Zambia. They deserve a piece of the national cake. And so we must be deliberate. We've heard language like it's not economically viable. No, it's viable because there are Zambians that are part and parcel of this country. And so we need transformational leadership that will look at regions.
It's regrettable to hear that development can be taken to certain areas because it's a huge capital expenditure. For example, a road, they say, is not economically viable. Aren't the people the most viable purpose you should be investing in?
Yeah, I mean, even if there was one Zambian, we must make sure that Zambian is reachable. Clinics, if someone has got a snake bite, the nearest clinic is about 100 kilometers away.
They'll definitely
50
die.
kilometers, they will die. And the road, transport cannot go, cannot be reliable because the state of the roads is bad. And so they are viable because there are Zambians there, made in the image of God, who deserve to be empowered. So we need to get away from a scenario of looking at everything from a capitalist perspective to unlocking some of these potential, because once they have infrastructure in terms of roads, basic banking services, basic communication, if not the best communication, accessible, cost-effective, not for free, but they must be effective. Once we open up this country, why should we take, for example, you're going to Nakonde or that route from Eastern Province, you come into Lusaka. You go, why don't we open the route in Chama and connect there? Why don't we open Southern Province so at Livingstone, you don't have to come to Kafue to go to Siavonga. These are things that are necessary. They may not immediately make economic sense, but they are needed because there are human beings that are Zambians there, who, once this infrastructure is there, they'll be empowered and they may do better. New opportunities will come up. Yeah. And so we need to do better in the way we are handling the mines. Why should... Botswana is doing it. It has said it's 50-50. Or pack your bags and go. I mean, we have been too nice to people who have been extracting and making huge profits at our expense. Yes, let's honor agreements, but let's not go into those agreements with our eyes closed. We should also, if the others, for example, they go to negotiations, they have teams. These multinationals have got teams. They are fully rested. You go with 2, 3 people who are just politicians and a few technocrats. They'll be sleeping in those negotiations, and vital things are made when they are sleeping. And then you wonder what happened. How did we sign this? So we need to make sure we invest in high-profile delegations, high-profile negotiators, so that whatever we agree to has Zambia at the center of it all. And so we need to change that narrative. But we are grappling with the disaster, drought, and all these other things. They've happened before. And those that consider the patterns have said almost every 10 years, we tend to have this kind of scenario. So what happened to our leaders? What happened to our Joseph? What happened? Because we should have been
Joseph, who stood for 7 years, yes, because he knew that there's a drought coming for the next 7 years.
So the issue here, yes, people are rushing to say, no, there's a drought, it's not me who created it. But no, you said you are going to do better, and we expect nothing other than better from you. It's not that Zambians don't know that there's a challenge at one stage of the year of load shedding. They know. But you promised you will do better. Do better. When it comes to issues of managing crises like cholera will be history. Let it be history. We expect nothing less. And when it comes to economic issues, yes, let's be prudent. Yes, you are trying to fix. We agree. It may not happen overnight. But it is also good to come back with a reflective update to Zambians. Yes, we mentioned A, B, C, D, but it's going to take longer. And these are the steps that we are taking to heal or remedy the situation. The communication aspect needs to come out. But the distinction or the difference with those countries you've mentioned, they have plans not for 5 years, not if you go to layer approach. They have plans for 50 years. You know, it's possible in Zambia to say in the next 50 years, we want to decommission pit latrines. We don't want to have any pit latrine, but we have a plan for that. Or we have good peppers that gather dust. You know, we are very good at producing, peppers and all these other things. Can we make these things work for a difference? And, if you are going to plan for 50 years, it requires a selfless leadership. Leadership that will realize, no matter how good I am, one day our political party or myself will never be in leadership. And so you make this broader, consensus kind of developed, built through consensus agenda and plan, so that successive governments are coming in and they're just saying, we have that destination. They did their part. They made those mistakes. We'll do this in order to remedy that, and this is what we are doing. That is what we need to do differently. Yeah. We must stop this approach where when you come in, everything the other people did is demonic, it is bad. We have to change literally everyone, including cooks and sweepers. What have they done? What wrong have they done? They are human beings made in the image of God. They deserve to have a job and sustain themselves. But you sweep and wipe away everybody. And then you start afresh. And so as long as we are in this kind of narrative, forget about building the Zambia we want to see. If we want to build the Zambia that is united, peaceful, and prosperous, where everyone, without exception, and segregation is allowed to participate and grow and blossom economically, politically, socially, religiously, everywhere. It must be a Zambia that will have selfless leaders in the corporate space, in the civil service space, in the religious space, leaders that think of tomorrow. Yeah. I don't want to be, in my case, if you come to our facility, you did come. If you came 5 years ago, you would find there was a little ramshackle that we called our office.
You have very beautiful offices, by the way. So congratulations.
So we are not talking the talk. We are walking the talk. We are saying we want to leave not bills, we want to leave blessings that the other generation will build on. The Japhet Ndrovus, the Reverend Matales did their part, the Sampa Bread did their part. And so we need to move on, and we pass on. And the same should happen in families and also at the national level. That is what is lacking. I think we go back. There are good things already there, but you think you are better than the other person, or because we have beef with each other. So anything suggested by that person should not be entertained. That is where our folly lies. And if we continue in that narrative, then forget about building the Zambia want to see.
Oh, wonderful, Father Emmanuel Chikoya. But I can't leave you to go. Just the other day, the International Human Rights Watch issued their global report. This is a group of country experts, journalists, lawyers, diplomats, and they gather these reports annually. And I'm saying this because I know you are from the Human Rights Commission. You are not here in that capacity, but you are a member of that board. The report on Zambia issued by Human Rights Watch is very scathing. It talks of harassment against the opposition. It has catalogued human rights abuses, restrictions on freedoms, such as freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, freedom of association. They've decried the Abuse of Public Order Act, the issue of torture. When you read a report like that, you think they are not talking about the Zambia we know. And for me, as a democracy, we must not be talking about human rights abuses. You must not be talking about freedoms and shrinking the democratic space. Here is an indictment by the Human Rights Watch. There will be a series of international reports that will be issued, that are issued every year. And this is the first one I've seen on 2023. And I personally am deeply concerned. I know I've been a victim of police brutality, and I belong to a political party that literally has been proscribed. What should we do with these issues? I know you talked about the strengthening of the Constitution as one of the hallmarks, but what do we need to do? We cannot call ourselves a democracy, pretend to promote human rights and freedoms, and here we've been cited. And I know this report is actually even just on the surface.
Yeah. I think basically, you've rightly put it, that I'm here as General Secretary of the Council of Churches in Zambia.
Yeah.
I count it, of course, a rare and singular honor to serve in the human rights. I'm there to add value. But in terms of the official position, I think the relevant people will speak and react to that. But what we see from a religious perspective, of course, is that we expected more. We thought it's a done deal. Public Order Act is a done deal. Police brutality will be history. The issues of roads, cadres misbehaving during Youth Week. I have personally sent messages to some senior leaders telling them somebody is being beaten right under the watch of paramilitary officers who were looking helpless, and they can't intervene. And so, when people highlight certain concerns, and if you are so preoccupied with praising yourself, you will not see the reality until it is too late. I think we highlighted similar challenges with the previous government, and of course we were called all sorts of names, but we remained determined, we remained resolute, and we are vindicated now. And so one of the things that I would clearly and emphatically share with the current political leaders, they have been given a stewardship, an opportunity to lead Zambia in a different way. Remember, you will reap what you sow. It may take 20 years, it may take whatever number of years, but there will always be a time to reap. If you are planting bitterness, you are planting violence, whether directly or indirectly, you will reap what you sow. And so when these reflective reports are being given, let's not get on the defensive. Let's ask ourselves, why is this international institution reflecting and giving such kind of a report on Zambia? Because we are not talking of a local entity. I've also, I'm preparing for some program somewhere. I'm almost going to be dealing with similar topics, and from a religious perspective. and I've been looking at the 2021 report, State of Human Rights in Zambia, 2022, and there are areas of concern. And it's a well-known fact and agreed fact that the biggest abuser of human rights is not the ordinary people, it's the state. And so it is a known fact, and it is in the public space. And so instead of being defensive, reflect and undertake the necessary reforms, set the tone, and that tone should be adopted by the rank and file up to the most junior person, so that we become better. The next report on Zambia should be saying we had noted the following concerns, but we are seeing the following improvements. I think that is the approach that needs to be undertaken. I just hope we won't get into that report will not be rubbished and torn to pieces. Listen, and listen very well. And that is why, even in terms of our body makeup, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, meaning we must spend twice as much as we would 1 time in terms of listening, in terms of understanding. And let us listen to understand, not listen to respond. Because that is the political, in the political DNA. We listen to respond. And so we miss the point. And so even in the most scathing report, there is some element of truth there that should be incorporated and inform necessary corrective measures. That is what should be done instead of rejecting and denying it.
Yeah. No, we saw rebuttals when the country report was issued by the United States government, because wherever they fund governments, they also have an obligation from their own standards and values to reflect on the human rights status of the countries that they support financially. And the report on Zambia in 2022 was very, very bad. It was released in 2023. It's on the State Department. We saw government go defensive, just saying, do you remember what the PF did? They refused to discuss the killings, the extrajudicial killings, the torture that was happening under their hand. They kept on attempting to refer every concerned party who raised this matter to the PF. No, why don't you remember the PF? No, they are saying your government was violent in 2022. Your government killed people in 2022. Why don't you answer to those issues? So I agree with you where you are saying, instead of listening to respond, we must say, what is the lesson in here? What can we do better? Which institutions are taking away the name of our country? Because investors refer to those reports. Stakeholders, our sister countries, judge us by those reports. So they are not reports for purposes of politics. They are reports, I think, to improve ourselves. Father Emmanuel Chikoya, what are your last words before we close?
Yeah, I mean, if a country like the US gives you that report, just know they are not there to please you. They are there to say the truth as it is. And if you reject it, because that I think they seem to have a soft spot or there's a good relationship, then they'll be their own enemies, and they'll have themselves to blame. So overall, I think basically what we would like to see, at least from my perspective as a religious leader, is to see a Zambia where we can all live together. We can all use our collective potential expertise for the good of this country. Yes, we will have those politics and all those things going on. We will have our differences, but let's learn to agree to disagree in a respectful manner. You can still be firm, passionate about defending what you stand for without vulgar language, without violence, without unleashing state machinery against one another. Let's avoid lawfare. Let the law have no eyes. It must visit everybody equally without discrimination. Past and present atrocities, crime, criminal behavior must be dealt with. And so at the end of the day, all we desire is to see us working together. Yes, it's important to provide checks and balances and also to clarify our positions. But at the end of the day, if we feel we are self-contained, we know it all, we are losing it. We need to make sure that, you know, there's like a small insect that picks small tree pieces or together and it builds a house. May that kind of wisdom engulf our current leaders, those in the opposition, in the religious sector, and we know our problems, be it economically, socially. Let's begin to have a Joseph type of approach to our problems, bringing everybody together and preparing ourselves economically, socially, so that we transform into the country that we would like to see. Good stewards, disciplined people, creative people, innovative people. Let's take our monies where it matters most. I like it when I hear we want value addition. Yes to that, Mr. President. Let's have value addition in this country. And let's have visions beyond our political parties, a vision for Zambia. Zambia must be the bigger picture. If we have that, I think most of these petty differences will fall out of the way. We can and we must unite. Thank you for the honor.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. Indeed, what you've said is that let's not work because of the next election. Let's work because of the next generation.
Yes.
Father Emmanuel Chikoya, who's the General Secretary of the Council of Churches in Zambia, was our special guest. And I think he has taught us various lessons. Through his lenses, we looked at the history of our country. Until we have our next special guest, God bless you, God bless our country. And Father Chikoya, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Good day and shalom.
Be blessed.